One of my viewers that follows me didn't know that Mrs. Clinton said that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Now, I'm not going to go through her whole biography, but I'm going to go through a lot of Mrs. Clinton. I'm not somebody that defends Mrs. Clinton. I'm not a fan of Mrs. Clinton. I'm somewhat a fan of Bill Clinton. I think Bill Clinton was probably our best president in modern history if you objectively look at the things that he did. And by modern history, I mean through the 80s and 90s, not the 60s and prior. But I do think Bill Clinton was an exceptional president as far as policy that he got done for the benefit of the American people. So, what I want to point out here is what people might not understand. Mrs. Clinton was a Republican before 1968. Now, this has to do with the fact that this is the time period where the Democrats and the Republicans had switched. The Republicans were the anti-segregationist party, and the Democrats were the pro-segregationist party, and they flipped. However, both Hillary Clinton and her husband, Bill Clinton, can be thought of as Dixiecrats, okay, conservative Democrats from the South, although Mrs. Clinton isn't originally from the South. So many people probably know that Donald Trump had basically let a whole bunch of dangerous criminals out of prison under the First Step Act, and had called Mrs. Clinton, Joe Biden, and Bill Clinton racists for their view of helping urban communities, and everyone for that matter, by putting dangerous criminals behind bars. I've already did a video about Joe Biden, but as you will see, Mrs. Clinton has a pro-law and order past, unlike Donald Trump. And as I said, I'm not defending Mrs. Clinton. I'm not a particular fan of Mrs. Clinton. Like I said, I like Bill Clinton. I don't know if she'd follow in his footsteps, so to say. She has been very adamant that she is her own person. But let's hear what she has to say about the types of people that commit crimes. You know, the kinds of people that Donald Trump let out of prison at the behest of Kanye West, and at the behest of Candace Owens, and at the behest of Kim Kardashian. So what does Mrs. Clinton have to say about these people?
From the nation's capital and are a public service of your television provider, C-SPAN, created by cable.
The fourth challenge is to take back our streets from crime, gangs, and drugs. And we have actually been making progress on this count as a nation because of what local law is to take back our streets from crime, gangs, and drugs. Is to take back our streets from crime, gangs, and drugs. And we have actually been making progress on this count as a nation because of what local law enforcement officials are doing, because of what citizens and neighborhood patrols are doing. We're making some progress.
Now, who's more pro-police? Donald Trump, the one that enacts crazy police reforms at an executive order at the behest of Black Lives Matter? Or Mrs. Clinton, who honors police for the drop in crime rates?
Because of what local law enforcement officials are doing, because of what local law enforcement officials are doing, because of what local law enforcement officials are doing, because of what citizens and neighborhood patrols are doing, we're making some progress. Much of it is related to the initiative called community policing.
Community policing was enacted by her husband, then President Bill Clinton.
Because we have finally gotten more police officers on the street. That was one of the goals that the president had when he pushed the crime bill that was passed in 1994.
Now that crime bill is the so-called racist crime bill, the crime bill that Donald Trump called racist. That is the so-called racist crime bill that allowed police to put people behind bars and allowed the streets to be safer in the United States and led to all-time lows in violent crime, all crime really, but mostly violent crime and gun crime. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's the law that Donald Trump called racist that led to all-time lows in crime.
He promised 100,000 police. We're moving in that direction, but we can see it already makes a difference. Because if we have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets, we can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an order to prevent.
This is what's important to understand, too. Now, Donald Trump let people out of prison that were supposedly, the trafficking cocaine and things like that he considered minor things. Well, the thing is, when people are committing drug-related crimes, a lot of times they're committing other crimes. So by putting people in prison for petty crimes and drug trafficking, which is not a petty crime, it tends to lower the overall crime rate, because those same people, if you're not respecting the basic laws, you're probably not respecting other laws too.
Prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. Prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. To have an organized effort against gangs. To have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are often...
Keep that in mind. So this is how drug crime is connected to overall crime.
They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. Cartels, they are not just gangs of kids anymore. Cartels, they are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No super predators. Super predators. The kinds of kids that are called super predators. The kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way. No empathy. We can talk. No empathy. No empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs to bring them to heel. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs
Now keep in mind, Donald Trump was busy trying to use the FBI to commit nonsense, but also he was busy commuting the sentences of these people and letting people out of prison that have committed these crimes, which were put in prison under the bipartisan Biden crime bill, which made the country safer. This is how this is how the Biden crime bill made America safer.
In addition to that, he has appointed a new drug czar. He has appointed a new drug czar. He has appointed a new drug czar. You probably saw him Tuesday night. He's one of the most distinguished active military generals that we have in our country. He's already proven that he knows how to interdict drugs because of his command of the South American activity on behalf of the United States. The South American activity on behalf of the United States. The South American activity on behalf of the United States. But General McCaffrey will make a big difference, and I believe it is now time for all of us to know what we can do individually to be part of this anti-crime, anti-gangs, anti-drug effort. The fifth is anti-crime, anti-gangs, anti-drug effort. Anti-crime, anti-gangs, anti-drug effort.
Now keep in mind, this is coming from Hillary Clinton, whereas Donald Trump let these people out of prison. Mrs. Clinton is clearly far more law and order, and again, right here.
Anti-crime, anti-gangs, anti-drug effort.
So so right here, Bill Clinton is going to talk about the benefits of the Biden crime bill that he signed into law that made this country safer and led to all-time lows in gun violence. The way that you stop gun violence is not cracking down on guns. It's cracking down on the criminals that are using those guns to harm people. And Bill Clinton understood that.
don't know how you would characterize the gang leaders who got 13-year-old kids hopped up on crack and sent them out onto the street to murder other African-American children. African-American children them out onto the street to murder other African-American children.
Keep in mind what he's saying here. These are the kind of people that BLM supported, and these are the kind of people that Donald Trump let out of prison.
Them out onto the street to murder other African-American children. Them out onto the street to murder other African-American children. Them out onto the street to murder other African-American children. Maybe you thought they were good citizens.
Not only did they think they were good citizens, but so did Kanye West, so did Candace Owens, so did Kim Kardashian, and so did Jared Kushner and Donald Trump. They thought they were such good citizens that they thought they would let them out of prison.
Maybe you thought they were good citizens. Maybe you thought they were good citizens. Maybe you thought they were good citizens. She didn't. She didn't. Good citizens. She didn't. She didn't. Good citizens. She didn't. She didn't. You are defending the people who kill the lives you say matter. The people who kill the lives you say matter. The people who kill the lives you say matter. Tell the truth. When you get to be president, all the speeches stop and you have to show up for work and stand.
And that's where Donald Trump fell short, is when all the speeches stopped, you have to deliver.
And stand and deliver. And that really, really matters. I've been there, I know. If you make enough decisions and take enough responsibility, they can't possibly all be right. But the question is, are you going forward together? That's why the Congressional Black Caucus endorsed her for president. That's why major Hispanic groups have endorsed her. That's why the farm workers have endorsed her. That's why many of the unions have endorsed her. That's why both the major teachers unions endorsed her. That's why the American Nurses Association endorsed her. Planned Parenthood, Human Rights Campaign, they all endorsed her.
Now, some people have questioned Mrs. Clinton's religious faith. So what needs to be understood is Mrs. Clinton is indeed a devout Methodist. She has stated this on a number of occasions. I have no reason to doubt that she's a devout Methodist. Somebody had asked if Mrs. Clinton had stated that abortion should be safe, rare, and legal. I think that that's not a question, but the problem, I mean, it's not a question that should be asked unless you weren't there in the 90s, and this gentleman I don't believe was. In fact, I know he wasn't. But for politicians who are searching for an appropriate way to talk about their Christian faith in public, the Bible can sometimes appear to contain contradictory mandates. In Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, he admonishes his disciples to pray in secret, not to be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Later, however, the resurrected Jesus, just before he is taken up to heaven, implores his followers to go forth and be witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Managing this tension between public and private hypocrisy and witness can be especially vexing for somebody under the public glare. On Thursday night, Mrs. Hillary Clinton, a lifelong Methodist, sat down for a conversation about faith at Riverside Church in New York City. The event was a fundraiser for Camp Olmsted, a camp for underserved children. Whoops, I almost said undeserved. So this was for underserved children. She was at a fundraiser for underserved children, supported by the United Methodist Church. It had the feel, at times, of both a Trump resistance rally and a kickoff event for her book tour, which will officially start next week. Yet it also offered Clinton, no longer a candidate for public office, a chance to discuss an animating influence on her life, but one that she has struggled over the years to convey about her to a skeptical public. She said, "I was raised to believe that actions spoke louder than words," she explained to her audience in the pews. If you were a person of faith, that that should be evident in how you treated other people and what kind of life you lived. So she says, I didn't go around talking about it a lot, but I certainly was foremost in my mind. Or it was foremost in my mind, she said. I've tried to express it sometimes more effectively than other times over the course of the last 20 or 30 years, but I've tried to be guided by it more, even more importantly. So she's saying that her faith had guided her. That's the most important thing. There have been times when this impulse to express her faith was undeniably driven by politics. In 2007, several months into her first presidential campaign, this person interviewed Mrs. Clinton at length about the influence of religion on her life during the 2008 campaign. The Democratic Party made carefully plotted efforts to appeal to churchgoers, including white evangelicals, who had voted overwhelmingly Republican in the previous election. A week and a half before our conversation, Clinton had participated in a nationally televised forum with her Democratic primary opponents, then Senator Barack Obama and former Senator John Edwards. Organized by the liberal evangelical group Sojourners about their faiths, for a moment it was actually voguish for Democratic candidates to talk about their spiritual lives. By 2016, Democrats had mostly abandoned these kind of concerted efforts, a serious blunder, according to some faith leaders, given Donald Trump's obvious clumsiness around religion, meaning he doesn't really have strong beliefs. Nevertheless, on the campaign trail last year, Clinton still occasionally made reference to her spirituality, part of her campaign's efforts to address questions about her authenticity. This week, this person went back and listened to a recording of their 2007 interview with Clinton, and was struck by Clinton's fluency in talking about everything from Thomas Aquinas to the tenets of Methodism. I resonated to the fact that it was both revelatory and scripture-based, but that you were invited to use your power of reason to think through your faith and to work through it, through what it meant to you and how you would live it in your daily life, she told me. Evangelicals often criticize leaders of mainline denominations like the United Methodist Church for focusing too much on addressing social ills and not enough on the importance of personal salvation. Clinton told me that she believed there was some validity to that critique. I thought that in the Methodist Church, a lot of churches had drifted too far on the social gospel side, which is very understandable because there were a lot of serious issues, certainly that were facing me. I was growing up on race relations, on the Vietnam War, and so much else. She said, but you have to keep in balance the feeding of your spirit and your soul, and the need to be nurturing your personal faith, while you try to have the energy and the support to go out into the world. This person had pressed Clinton about her personal theology. Did she believe in a personal relationship with God, which evangelicals like to talk about? Absolutely, she said. Did she believe that the resurrection of Jesus Christ actually happened? Yes, I do, she said. She became more circumspect when the conversation turned personal. I asked, for instance, whether her faith had influenced her decision to stay in her marriage. She demurred on that. On Thursday evening, Clinton spoke about her election loss and described some of the tools that got her through that personally devastating period. I tried alternate nostril breathing, meaning pranayama, she said, eliciting laughter from the crowd. And yes, I had my fair share of Chardonnay, meaning red wine, of course. But she also turned to prayer. She said, and reread writings by the priest Henry Newman, which she said had also helped her during the difficult years at the end of the 1990s. Through it all, my faith was really holding me together in a very central way, she said. It gave me a lot of courage to get up and keep going. Originally, attendees at Thursday's event were supposed to receive a copy of Strong for a Moment Like This, The Daily Devotions of Hillary Rodham Clinton, a book put together by Reverend Dr. Bill... where did that go? Put together by Dr. Bill Shalady, a United Methodist pastor who, during the presidential campaign, sent Clinton daily emails of spiritual encouragement. But earlier this week, after it was discovered that Shalady had plagiarized several passages, the book was pulled from stores by its publisher, parts of a moving devotional that Shalady sent on the morning after the election, when he told Clinton that she was experiencing a Friday, as in what happened to Jesus on Good Friday turned out to be problematic. Still, Shalady's conclusion, when he urged Clinton to have hope, has held up. One of my favorite sayings is, God doesn't close one door without opening another, but it can be hell in the hallway, Shalady wrote. My sister Hillary, you, our nation, our world is experiencing a dark Friday. Our hope is that Sunday is coming, but it might well be hell for a while. On Thursday night, Clinton didn't elaborate much on her period in the hallway, as Shalady put it, or go deeper into how faith had helped her find a way out. I wondered why she didn't. Giving testimony is, after all, a crucial aspect of church life, but one of Clinton's millstones has always been how to expose her inner life to people instead of dwelling on the spiritual dimensions of her election loss. She found her way back to the political, getting most invigorated when launching broadsides against the Trump administration. Yes, I am okay, she said, but I am worried. I'm worried that we face a continuing, deliberate effort to undermine our values and our institutions as Americans. And it is something we cannot stay silent about or stay on the sidelines about. She called upon more people to join us in speaking out, in resisting and insisting and persisting and enlisting in the struggles that are ahead of us. And she urged the faithful in the church to do all of this with a song in their heart. An earlier version of this story mischaracterized Henry Nouwen's Catholicism. So, at a Catholic charity event this month, Hillary Clinton, a one-time Sunday school teacher, so Hillary Clinton was a one-time Sunday school teacher, made a small but telling theological slip-up after trading jokes with her Republican rival Donald Trump at the Al Smith dinner in New York. Clinton got serious, praising her Catholic hosts and Pope Francis' fights against climate change and inequality. She said, "I'm not Catholic, I'm a Methodist," Clinton said, "but one of the things that we share is a belief in order to achieve salvation, we need both faith and good works. That's only half true. Neither the United Methodist Church nor the Catholic Church teach believers that work their way into heaven. Good deeds are important, and both churches agree." That's not 100% true. Catholicism does favor good works. Catholicism has changed a little bit recently. Clinton likely knows this. She's correctly stated the doctrine before, including at a church service in Washington last year. Maybe her salvation stumble was the work of a sloppy speechwriter. So Donald Trump had said, "We don't know anything about Hillary in terms of religion." Now she's been in the public eye for years and years, and yet there's nothing out there. So that's a pants on fire statement according to PolitiFact. So what do we know about Hillary Clinton's religion? A lot, actually. Donald Trump has once again questioned a presidential candidate's religious affiliations, accusing presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton of shielding her religious preference from the public eye. Okay, So, speaking prior to a gathering hosted by conservative Christian activist organization United in Purpose, Trump said, "There has been no public reference in Clinton's religion." The comment was captured in video from E.W. Jackson, a former nominee from Virginia lieutenant governor who attended the gathering. Trump said, "We don't know anything about Hillary Clinton in terms of religion," Trump said in the video. "Now she's been in the public eye for years, and yet there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there." This is not the first time Trump has questioned a candidate's religion. In 2011, Trump floated the possibility that President Barack Obama's, whose path to Christianity is well documented, could be a Muslim. At the gathering, Trump also made the broader claim that Clinton would not protect religious liberty. "We can't be, again, politically correct and say we pray for all our leaders, because all of our leaders are selling Christianity down the tubes, selling evangelicals down the tubes," he said. So what does Clinton have to say about her religion? A lot, we found out. On the campaign trail, number one, what's funny about that, this shows you how idiotic Trump is. I would assume that if Christians are praying for all their leaders, they would be praying for the ones that are not upholding religious freedom and things like that to come to God would be I'm not a religious person, but I would assume that's what they would do. You're supposed to pray for your enemies after all. And what you're praying for is that they come to reason. So on the campaign trail, let's get this out of the way. Clinton is a Methodist, and the record on that is abundantly clear. The Clinton campaign directed us to several news articles where Clinton discussed her religion, including a January 25th campaign rally in Knoxville, Iowa. When asked about her beliefs, Clinton cited her Methodist faith and tied it into her support for the poor, citing the teachings of Christ. The Salvation Army is an offshoot of the Methodist religion. I don't know if anybody knows that. Because it sure does seem to favor the poor and the merciful, and those who in worldly terms don't have a lot, but who have the spirit that God recognizes as being at the core of love and salvation, she said, meaning Clinton said that. Okay, she went on to criticize those who use Christianity to condemn so quickly and judge so harshly. In February 2016, after the New Hampshire primary, Clinton paraphrased a phrase popular among Methodists and often attributed to John Wesley, founder of the Methodist Church. "You know, my family and my faith taught me a simple credo. Do all the good you can in all the ways you can for all the people you can," she said. She called upon her personal spirituality during her unsuccessful 2008 bid for president. "I was raised to pray, as a little girl, saying my prayers at night, saying grace at meals, praying in, church," she said at the 2007 presidential forum. Clinton has definitely brought up her religious background on the campaign trail, this time around to convey both her political and personal philosophies. However, the intended message has not always hit home with voters. Okay. A 2016 Pew poll found that 43% of people found Clinton not religious, compared to 60% for Trump. How people think Trump is religious at all blows my mind. A 2008 Pew poll had 31% thinking her not religious and 53% only somewhat religious. Formative years. Religion has played a large role in Clinton's life even before there was any political advantage to do so, said Patrick Manny, a Bill Clinton biographer and professor of history at Boston College. Hillary Clinton's religious upbringing starts around the 6th grade in Park Ridge, Illinois, where she attended Bible classes and participated in the Altar Guild at the First United Methodist Church, writes Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Carl Bernstein in his Clinton biography. There she met Don Jones, a Methodist youth minister who took Clinton under his wing at Jones Memorial. In 2009, Clinton attributed her pursuit of social justice to Jones's teachings. She said, "He taught me the meaning of the words faith in action and the importance of social justice and human rights," she said at the time. In the conservative community of Park Ridge, Jones was considered to be more liberal and a free thinker, occasionally drawing ire for it. Jones made it a point to teach Clinton how Jesus would deal with social issues, said William Chaffee, a professor of a professor of history at Duke University who has studied Clinton extensively. He took Hillary and the youth group into the slums of Chicago, had them interact with poor black kids and Puerto Ricans, and brought them to hear Martin Luther King preach. Chafe, I guess his name is, said, even though her father was a Goldwater Republican, Jones was eventually asked to leave by members of the community, notably one of Clinton's teachers, Paul Carlson, who found his teachings too radical. The disagreements they had informed her shift in political philosophy, Clinton wrote in her 2003 autobiography, Living History. Though my eyes were opening, I still mostly parroted the conventional wisdom of Park Ridge's and my father's politics, she wrote. While Don Jones threw me into liberalizing experiences, Paul Carlson reinforced my already still strong anti-communist views. Her critics have actually used her relationship with Jones against her as a radicalizing influence. Manny said, however, even after leaving for Wesley College, the two kept in touch. I wonder if it's possible to be a mental conservative and a heart liberal, she wrote Jones in a letter, reflecting on her changing political ideology and its religious influences. Conservative historian Paul Kengor, author of the book God and Hillary Clinton, told PolitiFact that Clinton has deviated from recent Methodist doctrine on abortion and gay marriage. The United Methodist Church recently voted in many actions to the contrary of Clinton's views on those topics, withdrawing from a pro-choice group and choosing not to alter its stance on gay marriage. She said, I think abortion should remain legal, but it needs to be safe and rare. So abortion needs to be legal, but it needs to be safe and rare, according to Mrs. Clinton, which is a hell of a lot different than what Donald Trump said, which is that he's pro-choice no matter what. She said at a 2008 forum commenting on her Methodist tradition has complicated the issue. Kengor said in an interview with Christianity Today that Clinton walked step by step with the Methodist leadership into a very liberal Christianity. She continued to attend church at Wellesley, and Chafe noted that her social justice pursuits meshed with her religion. Of course, social justice meshes with Christianity. Jesus Christ was a social justice warrior. She immediately identified with Marian Wright Edelman's Children's Defense Fund at Yale and worked with them after graduating from Yale. Chafe said the group advocated for family rights. The trend continues after moving to Arkansas in the 1970s, where she taught Sunday school. So she taught Sunday school at the First United Methodist Church. Manley said Clinton also attended the Foundry United Methodist Church in Washington as First Lady. Kengor told PolitiFact she was considered a regular at the church, which is considered to be more liberal than the larger Methodist denomination. Bill Clinton is a Baptist, not a Methodist. Hillary Clinton's daughter Chelsea was raised a Methodist. In her words, Clinton has said that advertising her faith publicly is not her instinct. Chafe noted she has relied on it less extensively in the recent past. Nonetheless, she has expounded on her faith in several public comments and books since entering the national spotlight with the election of her husband as president in 1992. She said, Bill and I went into our bedroom, closed the door, and prayed together for God's help as he took on this awesome honor and responsibility. Clinton wrote in Living History of her husband winning the 1992 election. In the same book, she describes meeting her prayer partners at the 1993 National Prayer Breakfast and the gifts of scripture they provided her. Of all the thousands of gifts I've received in my 8 years in the White House, few were more welcome and needed than these 12 intangible gifts of discernment, peace, compassion, faith, fellowship, vision, forgiveness, grace, wisdom, love, joy, and courage, she wrote. Her first book, It Takes a Village and Other Lessons Children Teach Us, published in 1996, includes a section devoted to Clinton's religious affiliation. Children are born believers. In the chapter, she marvels about children's potential to grasp spiritual issues and cites it as a reason to defend religious freedom. We are only children of God, not God, therefore. Therefore, we must not attempt to fit God into little boxes, claiming that he supports this or that political position, she wrote. References to Clinton's faith surfaced in 1998 when news of Bill Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky hit the press, and in 2000 when she campaigned for the U.S. Senate. In 2014, Clinton spoke to United Methodist Women, citing the Methodist Church as inspiring her to advocate for children and families, for women and men around the world who are oppressed and persecuted, denied their human rights and human dignity. I'll always cherish the Methodist Church because it gave us the gift of personal salvation, but the great obligation of social gospel. And for me, having faith, hope, and love in action was exactly what we were called to do, she said. Our ruling, Trump, okay, obviously Trump was lying when he said what he said. Okay.